All right, welcome to our deep dive into DIY English mastery. Clearly, you're someone who likes to take charge of their own learning. So that's awesome. We've got this seriously in-depth self-study guide. It's over 20,000 words, like it's a beast.
Wow, 20,000 words. That's quite a lot.
But don't worry, we're not going to drown you in all of that.
Yeah.
We're here to pull out the absolute gold and give you those aha moments, the ones that make you feel like you're already leveling up your English.
Yeah. And what I find really cool about this guide is that it's not promising you'll learn English in 30 days or anything like that. It's really about building a strong foundation. It's like setting yourself up for success, which aligns with, your love for thoroughness and long-term results. And it really acknowledges that learning a language is a journey. And it equips you with those tools and strategies to navigate that journey successfully.
Yeah, I love that. Right off the bat, it dives right into the importance of vocabulary and grammar, which, no surprise there. But the way it approaches it is really what caught my eye.
Yeah, for sure. For vocabulary, it actually encourages you to think about your passions.
Yeah.
It suggests something called thematic learning. So if you're really into travel or music, you focus on building vocabulary related to those areas.
I love that.
It's a really clever way to make learning more engaging and relevant to your life.
Yeah. Instead of just memorizing random words from a list, right?
Right.
It's like you're actually acquiring vocabulary you can use and visualize.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of making things stick, the guide's approach to grammar is all about active practice. It's not just about knowing the rules.
Right.
It's about using them.
I like that.
It even suggests analyzing sentence structures in your favorite books and articles to kind of passively absorb those grammar patterns.
That's so smart.
Yeah, it's like turning your reading into a grammar workout without even realizing it.
Yeah, I love that. But what really sets this guide apart is how it weaves together all these different skills. It's not just about, okay, here's vocabulary, here's grammar, here's this, here's that. It's how can we make them all work together?
Yeah.
For example, the way it highlights the connection between reading and vocabulary building.
Oh, for sure. The guide encourages you to diversify your reading material. Expose yourself to a wide range of texts, news articles, fiction, even technical documents, if that's your thing.
Right.
And it goes beyond just reading for comprehension,
Yeah, it emphasizes active reading techniques.
Yeah.
It's like turning reading into a two-way conversation with the text.
Exactly. Highlighting key points, jotting down questions, summarizing sections in your own words.
I love that.
It's about really engaging with the material. And what I found really insightful is that it emphasizes this idea of gradually increasing reading difficulty.
Okay.
It's about building confidence with each win, rather than getting discouraged by tackling super challenging texts right away.
That's such a crucial point, especially for someone who's, kind of directing their own learning.
Yeah, exactly. It's about setting yourself up for success and enjoying the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of enjoying the process, the guide doesn't shy away from tackling writing, which can be, a bit dreaded by some learners.
Oh, for sure. It encourages you to find ways to make writing a regular practice. Journaling, emails, maybe even some creative writing if you're feeling adventurous. The key is consistency.
I love that. And it even provides specific tips for making your writing more engaging and effective. One that really stood out to me was using transitions to create a smooth flow between ideas.
Yeah. That's something a lot of learners struggle with, and the guide really breaks it down in a way that's easy to understand and apply. And it emphasizes, too, the importance of developing your own unique voice in your writing, which is important for making your writing stand out, whether it's an email or a report.
Totally.
Okay,
so here's where things get interesting. The guide acknowledges that listening is just as important as speaking, maybe even more so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like immersing yourself in authentic English audio podcasts, TV shows, music, anything that grabs your attention. And it doesn't stop there. It encourages you to use those opportunities to actually practice your comprehension skills.
Right.
There's a section on listening for context clues, which is really cool.
I love that.
It's like you're a language detective,
Yeah.
piecing together meaning from these subtle cues. And it's a really effective way to improve your listening comprehension.
It forces you to really think about what you're hearing.
Right.
It's not just passively listening.
Absolutely. And, it ties in beautifully with the guide's emphasis on exposing yourself to different accents.
Yeah, because you're going to hear different accents.
Exactly. English is a global language.
Yeah.
And being able to understand diverse speakers is really essential in today's world.
100%. Okay, so the big one. Speaking, we all know that for a lot of learners, speaking is the most daunting part.
It is. It's the scariest one.
Yeah, but the guide offers practical strategies for overcoming that fear and building confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things I thought was clever was practicing self-talk,
Oh, yeah.
which sounds a little strange,
Talking to yourself.
but it's a great way to practice your pronunciation, your fluency, and even grammar without the pressure of an audience.
And you can do it anywhere.
Right.
Like, no one's judging you.
Yeah, exactly. And it also emphasizes the importance of listening to become a good speaker. You know, that active listening thing we were talking
Yeah, it
about?
all connects. It's all connected.
Yeah, being able to listen and respond thoughtfully in a conversation is key, no matter what language you're speaking.
Totally. It's about that back and forth exchange
Reexist.
and being present in the moment.
I love it. All right, so we've laid a really solid foundation here. We've talked about reading, writing, listening, and speaking. But now let's get tactical. This next section of the guide is like opening a treasure chest of specific techniques, and I can't wait to dive in.
It's going to be fun.
Oh, I know. Welcome back to this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've laid a pretty solid foundation with those core areas of English learning: reading, writing, listening, speaking. And I love how this guide emphasizes making those skills work together, right? It's not just about them in isolation. It's about how can we make them all work together. But now, let's get even more tactical.
Yeah.
This next section is like opening up this treasure chest of super specific techniques.
Yes. And what I think is so cool about this section is that it doesn't just throw a bunch of random tips at you. It actually explains the why behind each technique,
Yeah.
which I think is so important for self-directed learners like yourself, right? Because you want to understand the reasoning behind your learning choices.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so let's dive into some of those techniques, starting with vocabulary. I was blown away by this one idea. It's called word root analysis. Remember how we talked about making those connections between words?
Yes.
This technique takes it to a whole other level.
Yeah. It's like becoming a word detective.
Yeah.
The guide shows you how to break down complex words into their root components,
Yeah.
prefixes, suffixes, all of that.
Yeah.
And once you understand those building blocks, you can unlock the meaning of so many other words.
It's like you get this superpower. All of a sudden, you're not intimidated by those long, complicated words anymore. And the guide gives you a ton of examples. So it's really helpful for putting this technique into practice.
And it connects beautifully with that thematic vocabulary learning we talked about earlier.
Yes.
Imagine you're learning vocabulary related to technology, right?
Okay.
And you come across a word like cybersecurity. By understanding the roots, cyber and security, you can easily figure out what the whole word means.
Yeah. It's like you're building this mental map of vocabulary where words are connected by their shared roots.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to grammar. The guide takes a very practical approach here, focusing on mastering those different tenses: present, past, future, all the forms.
Yes, and it goes beyond just memorizing verb conjugations, which can be so boring.
Right.
It encourages you to actually use those tenses in different contexts, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it even suggests creating your own sentences based on real-life situations.
Oh, I like that.
Like, yesterday, I went to the store, and tomorrow, I will go to the library. Simple, but
Yeah.
so effective.
Simple, but
Yeah.
effective, yeah. And I also thought it was helpful how the guide suggests analyzing sentences you come across while you're reading,
Oh, yeah.
paying attention to how those tenses are used in context.
It's like a sneaky way to reinforce your understanding of grammar without even realizing it.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's switch gears to reading one of my personal favorites.
Me too.
The guide is packed with techniques that can make you a more effective and engaged reader.
For sure.
One that I thought was really cool was using visual aids to enhance your comprehension.
Oh, that's a good one.
Highlighting, drawing diagrams, even just creating mental images as you read.
I love that, especially for visual learners like yourself.
Yeah.
You're adding that visual element, which can really boost your retention.
It's like turning the words on the page into a movie in your mind.
Exactly. And it makes it so much more fun, too.
So much more fun, yeah. And speaking of making things more dynamic, the guide also encourages reading aloud.
Oh, yes. Especially if you want to improve your pronunciation and fluency.
Yeah, it might feel a little awkward at first, but
It's so effective.
it is. It forces you to slow down, pay attention to each word.
And it engages different parts of your brain compared to silent reading.
Totally. Okay, let's talk writing.
Yeah.
This guide does not mess around. It goes deep into some really effective writing techniques.
Yeah, it's serious about writing.
One that I think is super helpful, especially for people who struggle with clarity and organization, is outlining.
Oh, outlining is key.
Yeah. It's like planning your writing before you even start putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. as the case may be.
Right, you're creating a roadmap for your ideas.
Exactly. So you can make sure that your ideas flow logically and your writing is easy to follow.
And it prevents you from getting lost along the way.
Yes. And it also goes into detail about varying your sentence structure, which I thought was cool.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Instead of just writing a bunch of simple sentences,
Right.
you experiment with compound sentences, complex sentences. It adds so much depth and interest to your writing.
Then it makes you sound more sophisticated, too.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears again to listening, a skill that is so often overlooked, but absolutely essential for becoming fluent.
I know. People underestimate listening.
They do. This guide is a huge advocate for using podcasts as a learning tool.
Podcasts are amazing. It's like having a conversation with interesting people right in your ear.
I love podcasts.
Yeah.
And the guide really emphasizes that podcasts are a great way to expose yourself to different accents and speaking styles.
Which is so important for developing real-world listening skills.
Yes, because it's one thing to understand a textbook recording, right?
Right.
But it's another thing entirely to be able to follow a conversation between native speakers with all their, regionalisms and slang.
Exactly. Real-life English is messy and unpredictable.
Exactly. And the guide doesn't just say, listen to podcasts. It gives you specific strategies to maximize your learning.
Yeah, like what?
One suggestion is to use subtitles, at least at first,
Oh, that's a good tip.
to help you connect those spoken words with their written form.
And then, as you get more comfortable, you can challenge yourself by turning the subtitles off,
Yes.
relying solely on your ears.
It's like a gradual process.
Yep.
But it's so rewarding to see those listening skills improve over time.
Absolutely. It's like a muscle you're strengthening.
Totally. Another tip the guide offers is to practice listening for specific information.
Oh, that's a good one.
So instead of just passively listening, you're actively trying to pick out key details, dates, names, statistics, anything that's relevant.
You're training your ears to be laser focused.
Yes, which is such a valuable skill, not just for language learning, but for anything, right?
Totally.
Like a business meeting or even just a casual conversation.
It's about being present and attentive.
I love that. Okay, last but definitely not least, let's tackle speaking, the big one.
The one everyone gets nervous about.
Yeah, but the guide offers some really practical strategies for building confidence and fluency.
For sure, you don't have to be scared.
One of the most effective techniques it recommends is finding a language exchange partner.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It could be someone online or in person who's learning your native language and wants to practice English.
It's a win-win.
Totally. And it creates a really safe and supportive environment where you can both feel comfortable making mistakes.
Because everyone makes mistakes.
Everyone. And the guide goes beyond just language exchanges. It encourages you to join English-speaking clubs or groups
Oh, yeah.
in your local community or online
It's a great way to immerse yourself in the language and meet new people.
and practice speaking in a more casual social setting.
Exactly. You're using English in a natural, authentic way.
I love it. Another suggestion I found really helpful was recording yourself speaking English.
Oh, that's a good one, even though it can feel a little awkward at first.
It can, but it's an incredibly valuable tool for self-assessment.
Yeah, you can hear yourself from a different perspective.
You can. By listening back, you can pinpoint areas where you excel and areas where you might need a little more work. You can pay attention to your pronunciation, your fluency, your grammar, your vocabulary. It's like having your own personal language coach.
And it ties back to that idea of active learning, which is so central to this guide.
It does. It's about taking ownership of your learning and identifying your own areas for growth.
Exactly. You're not just passively receiving information, you're actively shaping your learning experience.
I love that. And finally, the guide really emphasizes the importance of overcoming that fear of speaking, which holds so many learners back.
I know, it's such a common barrier.
It is, but the guide reminds us that everyone makes mistakes when they're learning a new language. And those mistakes are actually valuable learning opportunities.
They are. It's how we grow.
It's about shifting that perspective from a fear of failure to a celebration of progress.
Exactly. And the guide encourages you to practice speaking in safe and supportive environments.
Yes.
With a language partner, a tutor, even just with friends or family who speak English.
Create a space where you feel comfortable experimenting, trying new things, pushing yourself outside that comfort zone.
That's where the real magic happens.
That's where the magic happens. Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, which focuses on those overarching principles for self-study success, we want to leave you with this question. What technique or strategy from this section really resonated with you and your learning style?
Yeah, think about it.
Hold on to that thought, because in part 3, we'll be exploring how to create a personalized learning plan that incorporates those techniques and helps you achieve those language learning goals. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive. We've gone through a ton of techniques to really boost your vocabulary and grammar, those all-important skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
We've really unpacked the how-to of English learning. But it's not just about the tools, right?
Right.
It's about the mindset. And
Yeah.
this is where the guide gets really interesting. It goes beyond just techniques and talks about those core principles that can really make or break your self-study journey.
It's like it's a roadmap and a motivational coach all rolled into one. And one of the first principles it emphasizes is consistency, which you already value, which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
But the guide goes deeper than just saying, practice regularly.
Right.
Right. It acknowledges that life gets busy
It does.
and offers really practical tips for weaving English practice into your everyday routine,
Yeah.
even if it's just for a few minutes at a time.
Yeah. Like, think about your daily habits, right?
Yeah,
And find those little pockets of time that you can turn into learning opportunities.
like listening to a podcast while you're getting ready in the morning or
Okay.
reading a news article on your lunch break.
Those small, consistent efforts make a huge difference over time.
They really do. And speaking of making things stick, the guide also stresses the importance of active learning. We've touched on this a lot, but it's worth repeating because it's so fundamental to the guide's whole approach.
It's about really engaging with the language, right? Not just passively absorbing information.
Yeah,
It's about experimenting with it, making it your own, asking questions, looking for opportunities to actually use English, pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone.
yeah, I love that. It's like the guide encourages you to think of yourself as an explorer, charting your own course through the vast landscape of the English language.
Yeah. You're not just a student, you're an adventurer.
I love that. And that brings us to another really important principle that the guide highlights: setting realistic goals. It cautions against trying to do too much too soon, which we all know can lead to feeling overwhelmed and discouraged.
It's like trying to climb a mountain in one giant leap. You'll just exhaust yourself. Right. Instead, break down your learning journey into smaller steps.
The smaller, manageable steps, yeah.
Focus on one grammar point this week, or maybe expand your vocabulary in a certain area next month.
Set yourself up for success with goals that are challenging but also attainable.
Exactly. And remember that each small victory, no matter how small it seems, keeps you moving forward.
It fuels that motivation, right?
Absolutely. Speaking of motivation, the guide offers some really great advice on how to stay engaged and inspired when you're learning on your own.
Yeah, it's so important, especially when you don't have a teacher or a classroom setting to keep you accountable.
Exactly. And one suggestion that stood out to me was finding ways to make the learning process fun.
Oh, yeah. That's key.
It sounds obvious, but it's easy to forget.
Right.
Explore different learning methods, try new resources, find what you really enjoy.
Like watching movies with subtitles.
Yes.
Or listening to music.
Or joining an online community of language learners.
The key is to find those activities that make you excited to learn,
Yeah.
that make you want to set aside that time.
Make it a part of your life, not a chore.
And the guide reminds us that learning a language is not a sprint, it's a marathon.
It's a journey.
There will be times when you hit a plateau, when progress feels slow.
It happens to everyone.
It does. But it's in those moments that you have to remember why you started.
Reconnect with that passion.
It's exactly. And celebrate every single milestone, no matter how small.
And remember, you're not alone. You have so many resources available. Online communities, language partners, tutors, even friends and family.
There's a whole world of support out there, yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this final thought. This guide has given you an incredible toolkit, right? But the success of your journey ultimately rests in your hands.
It's about taking ownership of your learning, embracing the process, finding the joy in it.
We have no doubt that with your dedication, your curiosity, and all the strategies you've learned from this guide, you'll achieve your goals and unlock all those amazing possibilities that come with mastering English.
You've got this.
That's it for our deep dive. We hope you feel inspired and ready to embark on your own personalized journey to English mastery. Until next time, happy learning.